Outside of the Box is back, and Christine is recapping the April NHRL event with some of the competitors.
He's the captain, and my job is to make it work, right?
Then I turn around and see Zach talking with the ref. I'm like, what's going on here?
I was terrified of Matt's driving going into that match. It was very scary to know that like one of the best drivers in Battlebots was against this 30-pounder that I've probably maybe have like 2 minutes or 3 minutes driving. A bunch of the other people in like the Too Hot to Handle Discord were talking about, hey Nick, have you practiced driving upside down yet?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And man, did April NHRL deliver. I'm so excited to talk about this event. For me, there were a lot of really exciting things, exciting runs, and one of those was a amazing run by Bean Supreme Refried. So I have Ben and Razi here to talk about the event. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
For sure. I mean, as somebody who is now a converted Controlbot fan, I was especially excited to kind of see what Bean Supreme Refried was able to do. Now, before I get into April, I want to talk a little bit about the background of like the design, because I think what's really interesting is when you look at the year so far, because this robot has been in a couple of other, competitions at NHRL, and it seems that it did pretty good the first time. Making the bracket is like always a good bar to set, and then doing a little bit better the next time, making the round of 32, and then this time just kind of blew it out of the water. But what was it about this design in particular that you wanted to do, and being able to see at least those first couple of events looking pretty good up to kind of going into April?
Something that has helped us a lot is full invertibility, which like we flip a lot. And that just makes it to where we can just flip a switch and it's back to normal. But the ability to flip in both directions helps a lot, because flipping down actually does work better than flipping up like a normal bot in a lot of circumstances.
So our last bot, codenamed Pinto, had a tendency of winding up upside down and not being able to self-right very well. The geometry and the weight was just not right. And it caused a lot of frustration for us. So when we started working on this bot, like Razi was saying, the ability to have it be totally invertible, flip a switch on the transmitter, controller reverses, everything. There is no upside down, basically, with Refried. And so when Razi first came up with the idea, though, I thought it was a horrible idea. And it was just one of those things where it was like my job as the dad is to really like try and help him get the idea working. And the more he explained it to me, because we were actually going after something that was a little bit closer to Wicked Wedge, and we were building a 1-pounder originally, and we thought we'd build a 1-pound Wicked Wedge, and the night before we came out to CAD, he just suddenly started saying, "Oh no, it should just be this." I was going, "No, you're crazy. You're not making any sense." And then he came out and he drew it up, and it was like, "Oh, that does the same thing but simpler." But one of the big things was Wicked Wedge is able to push up and to push you into the wall and make you do a thing, And when Razi came up with the idea of the lifter going down on this wedge, that does the same motion as Wicked Wedge, really, but it's a simpler version. of that mechanism.
And it can go both ways.
And it could go both ways. So one of the things that he really struggled with driving at first with sour cream, which was the 1 pound version, and refried, was he had to decide which way to go with the flipper in which scenario. So it was one extra little thing to think about. And he's so obviously he's starting to get that figured out. But the real design change for me and on this event was we slowly started having horizontals figured out in the last two events. But verticals we had no counter for. And he came up with this again. This was another scenario where I thought, dude, what are you doing to me? You know? And he wanted these forks. He drew up these forks and he wanted them super long. And we debated it and blah, blah, blah. But again, he's the captain and my job is to make it work. Right. So, so we wound up going with, well, we did some UHMW forks of the same design, and Julian from Mako, who's a buddy of ours, we've been fighting, like we started the same event and everything. We've just been pretty close. We talk every day. He was like, dude, TPU, you know, just make your life easier and go TPU with the forks. And I think that was the main thing that happened this event was we started to have a counter for verts.
Yeah, before the wedge, the TPU wedge before would go really low, but even if their metal forks went above it, it would just bend the wedge out of the way. So even the smallest metal forks would absolutely annihilate us.
Yeah. But that's the main design difference that happened this week. So it's in March we got the titanium wedge, and that worked really well against Caldera, where we were able to KO Caldera, or they KO'd themselves against our face. And then the fork scenario this time, I think it's all starting to come together. We're excited for next time and dial it in a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's some pretty good 11-year-old ingenuity right there. So
it's pretty frustrating, trust me.
Now let's talk a little bit about April. We'll talk a little bit about the preliminary rounds for qualifying. The two bots that you faced were Trashbot and Ghastly, and I mean honestly, like I don't know that much about Trashbot, but Ghastly's a tough robot. I mean, they had a pretty nice little run themselves, going down to Prince in the round of 32. So talk a little bit about those first couple fights of the day.
We were glad to have those fights because we did get to test the new forks a lot. And yeah, they worked pretty well. We have gotten a lot of experience now against drums and beaters because we fought 5 of them on Saturday.
Well, but Ghastly, I don't know if Ghastly ran at any other time throughout the day, but if you look back at the fight, our fight against Ghastly, you didn't see it coming, did you?
No.
So they took off their weapon guards and there was little circular saws. And we haven't seen this out of them before. There was like, and we were like,
it was their first time using
it. Okay, yeah. So like they took off the weapon guards and I was like, oh no.
I did not like it. It was
no.
I would far rather just have a normal beater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was super interesting the way it worked. They did a lot of like cool damage to our bot.
Yeah.
Thankfully we were able to still control the situation. They had one point where like the saws like dug into the floor and they flipped themselves over, and I think they might have caused a little bit of internal damage at that point against themselves. Super interesting setup though, and like props to them. They came out and it was everything that we had planned went right out the window, and it was just hold on tight, you know?
They also had giant wheels.
Yeah. They basically used RC car tires. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah,
They were by far the biggest wheels I've ever bought.
yeah. Fun fights though. And Trashbot was super cool too. It was just they literally had little garbage cans on the side, and
It was
first
so
hit,
cute.
everything just exploded, and in a fun way. And
In a good way.
yeah, it reminiscent of what's her bot's name? Timber.
Yeah. It was.
Young lady, she puts glitter everywhere in the fight, and it was one of those fights where it's like, we're here to have fun, and that's always great, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yes, that is an integral part of robot fighting. So yeah, you made it into the bracket, and your first opponent in the bracket was Frog Spawn. Rare KO for a control bot, that you were able to get with that one. I don't know that I remember seeing that myself on stream, but if there's anything that you want to talk about with that fight in particular.
I don't remember most of everything anymore. It was a blur.
it was a shorter one, and I think that they were having receiver issues. Maybe I think that there was a hit. One thing that one of our goals with Refried was to build a tanky bot that was just impossible to kill.
Very tasty.
And I mean, to this point, I'm gonna find good wood. Knock on wood. There's been
Okay.
no KOs against us, and so a lot of
4 tournaments, no KO.
yeah, a lot of times it'll, there will be a hit, one of those huge hits, and more often than not, our opponent winds up on the wrong side of their own damage, you know. And I think that kind of happened. I would have to go back and watch that fight, but I think something happened, and they were getting intermittent signal or something. There was something intermittent in the bot, and it just, yeah, it was a pretty quick one.
I think in that fight I almost got stuck under the house bot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been a problem with
Yeah.
the new forks.
Yeah. We got
Yeah.
in one of the lair fights, we got stuck under a wall really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the live by the fork, die by the fork
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
situation.
Or
So yeah, you were able to get that win. Got into the round of 32, and we're going against Titanium White's cousins, which was definitely an interesting challenge. I mean, now, with the new NHRL rule set, there still are multi-bots. It's a little bit different than it was in the past, but it is obviously still a thing. Did you feel like based on your bot's design, that it's a little bit easier to deal with something like that?
Oh no, I was terrified. I thought that was like just about the worst matchup we could get now.
Well, again, Julian and Dima
Saved us a
it's
bit.
kind of helped us game plan for that one a bit.
Yeah.
And going into it, I don't know how well it played out, but going into it, the whole goal was to go with 2-second pins and just never let them get up on behind. I don't know if they were having issues with ignition or what, but the flames were working.
But they didn't. I saw them a few times, but they didn't really flame us at all.
yeah, I think we got lucky there.
Yeah.
Also the geometry of Bean Supreme, the rear end, like before the fight, I held the bot up against the rear end of the bot up against one of their copies, and it was, going to be, there was basically no scenario in which they were going to be able to get direct contact with a part we couldn't give up. We went with the titanium wedge, and actually, we were arguing about
Yeah.
that, and the Papazians were the deciders.
Yeah.
We went up to them. We went up to Julian and was like, "All right, you make the call because we can't agree on it." But we went with the titanium wedge, and it was an interesting fight. It was just one of those fights where it was total chaos, and you just hope
Yeah.
to get out alive.
Yeah, it's really hard to pin something when there's two of them. And then you just get like a pin train,
Yeah.
and that is terrifying.
I think it helps too that if you're pinning one half of the multi-bot and the other bot comes up, they can damage you in that, but they don't get the pin in the judges as far as I understand it. I could be wrong about that. I ref at NHRL, so I know that stuff. The judging, I'm a little iffy on, but they could come up and pin us while we're pinning them, but it's not going to count in their favor. They need to do damage in that moment, and they weren't able to do that, thankfully.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we mostly, yeah, I think we might have been cooked if, no pun intended, if they had used their flames, because I think without aggression, they won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, we would have gotten control too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now, going from that fight was a very close fight versus Drumder Child. I always think that it's so interesting to watch Nate fight with that bot because of the fact that Nate has historically been a control bot driver, and he's very good at that. So was that a concern for you at all? Because I mean, he is known to be a good driver, and
Known to be one of the best drivers. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not really up for debate.
Yeah.
It's no one wants to face Nate, no matter what, whether he was driving a Mini back in 23 or now with Drumder. And I mean, Drumder's frightening too. Like, there was nothing fun about looking down the bracket at a possible Drumder Child matchup. I'm sorry. That's just yeah.
We didn't really plan at all for that one. We kind of just
went.
We didn't really have enough time to plan.
Yeah, it was a quick turnaround.
It was one of the basically just 20-minute ones.
And again, we went with the long forks. I feel like that's one where, when it goes to the judges, and we just go to the judges so often as a control bot, when it goes to the judges, you just never know. And that one was super, super close, and I could see it going either way. I'm glad we came out on top of it. I'm proud of that, but Nate's just a great driver, and you can't take anything for granted. And that was one too where we got stuck, very much stuck under the front door with the forks. And even the housebot driver, Brianna, she said to me afterwards, she was like, I was afraid I was going to break you because the TPU was just going all over the place. And but that was a scenario where we were like screaming like, go, 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 hit us hard, but yeah. And then right at the end, Nate really spun the weapon up 100% because he was keeping the weapon down low so that his drivability was a little bit more controlled. And he spun the weapon up 100%, and I was like, oh no, here it comes. He's gonna explode this robot.
I was terrified.
That thing sounds so frightening. And it didn't connect, or I honestly forget what did or didn't happen at the end, but the 100% never hit us full on, and thank God, because I don't think we would have made it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good sound.
No.
It's not if you're on the other end, for sure.
It's great sound.
Now, the next match honestly was one of my favorites of the day, going against Big G, who also had just a really great run in the bracket. I loved that fight. I thought it was, super exciting seeing two kids, just going at it. I mean, how did you feel about it?
Um, well, everything just felt great because it was our first time getting into prime time. So we didn't really think that much about the fight before the fight or plan at all because we were just really happy to have gotten into prime time. Yeah, I don't remember much else again.
Well, I'll say there was two scenarios going on there too, where we decided, okay, everything's working. Change the battery, and honestly, we even debate changing the battery sometimes because refried uses such little battery. We generally use about a volt of our battery each fight.
Yeah.
We changed the battery, switched from I think we switched forks out
Yeah.
to
The
a fresh
forks-
pair of forks,
The forks were a little shredded.
and that's about it.
Yeah.
And they decided to do a full rebuild, and I don't know this, but I have a feeling that that might have been the deciding factor there. And in that scenario, there's no right answer. Like, full rebuild, get fresh everything is a great answer. Also, it's working, leave it alone. We're happy to be here is another great answer. And I think somewhere in the scenario, one of their wires didn't get put back where it's supposed to go and got wrapped up in one of their motors, and they lost drive. And it comes back to that, like, we really tried to build the bot in a way that it was just going to, we actually tape up all the ESCs and everything in a compartment. We don't change we don't do anything.
It's a really big pain though.
It is a pain to get them in and everything, but everything barely fits in there, and it's nice and compact and tight and keeps it from moving. The only thing we ever do is change out the front end. And I think that, when you've got a working bot, that's going to be your go-to answer from now on, is like, please don't mess it up, so.
Yeah, for sure. And now, before we get into talking about the Caldera fight, you win that match versus Big G, you qualified. So before we talk about Caldera, how did you feel realizing, oh my gosh, we qualified the spot?
It just felt amazing. Since we had already gotten into prime time, like for the first time, we were already just absurdly excited. And then when we realized that when we had qualified, it was just it just felt wild. Because we already felt like we had definitely done enough for the
Yeah.
day. That just felt wild.
It's like, qualifying has always been, since day one, has been a goal, right? And it's really been the primary goal. Like, yeah, every now and then we talk about a dumpster. Every now and then, like, we talk about a golden Brett or something, But it was always like qualifying. And the thing that I love about NHRL too is, and just combat robotics in general, is that anyone can go on a run. Anyone can go on a run. We joke, designed by an 11-year-old, engineered by a music major, because it just goes to prove that, like, there's, like, it doesn't matter if you're a WPI person or an MIT or whatever, that like some random dude and his kid can go out there and wreck your night, and that's beautiful. So one of our goals was his very first event with our SSP kit, the original Bean Supreme, got into at least the round of 32.
It was 6.
It was either 32 or 16.
Yeah.
We need to go back and check. But then we had never gotten that far again. So one of our goals was always to get as far as we did on his very first outing.
Yeah. Yeah, having it to where the farthest we had ever gotten was having a pretty lucky day with our unmodified SSP first time. Yeah, that we really wanted to not have that be.
Yeah, no longer be the high water mark.
Yeah.
So that, and then prime time, and then it's like we almost didn't even think about qualifying. We just wanted to fight, and when the scores came in after the Big G fight, I couldn't believe it. We were beside ourselves, but then at that point it got very real because we knew Caldera was going to be up next, and we beat Caldera the event before, and it was like, oh no, we have the key. Like not the key, but we've cracked this code before, so it's a viable thing that we crack it again. So,
but we did not.
we did.
I didn't.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
I didn't really care at that point
No.
because like it was just like how is this possible already? Yeah, getting out to Caldera in the semifinals. Sure, I had no bad feelings about that. It was just, yeah.
Yeah. We were tired. We were ready to go home.
Yeah, we were tired.
But you asked about like what's it like qualifying for us too. It's just that was always the dream, and we thought like in a couple of years, we thought. And Razi recently said it was like because you had Dwight on the last show from Master Control Bot, and we're great friends with Cam and Nora and Patrick from Sad Octopus and Under Destruction, and there's always this control bot thing where you're like, this is the hard road,
It's fun.
but it's fun, but like you're taking the road less traveled, and one time we were talking and I said to Razi, I was like, I'm surprised you want to stick with the control bot, and he said something like, if I had a 20% chance of qualifying with a control bot and an 80% chance of qualifying with a vert, I'd take the control bot. And it was like, oh man, he's in this. Like he's set on going with control bot now. So, for like for it to be like a couple months later and boom, there it was. What are you gonna do? So
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. Before that match, I was convinced that you were going to beat Caldera. Not because you had beaten them previously, but like, no shade to Glenn, but like Caldera had a lot of judges' decisions throughout the day. They weren't wasting people and like knocking people out. There were a lot of closer fights. And so I thought that was very much potentially in your grasp. And honestly, it was a good fight, like you did well.
if we didn't lose our drive,
We had a pretty good chance.
anything could have happened.
Yeah, we got like we hit the wall at a weird angle.
Well, he got
or
he
something.
got like, I'll have to post a photo of it somewhere. He got a perfect hit on our titanium in the one little area where there's not an angle for it to deflect, and he just threw us into the wall, and we've sat there like going frame by frame analyzing it, and that wheel hit the wall and there was just no coming back from it. But again, it goes to show how tanky Refried is, because in the next minute he almost knocked himself out,
Yeah.
trying to like trying to knock us out.
Yeah.
And
We almost beat his fist with our face, but we weren't able to do it in time.
yeah.
Yes, unfortunately. Now, I have to ask. I mean, did you want to fight Chainsaw Kitty? There's people that do, so I have to ask.
I think we would want to fight it as in like what it meant if we fought it, that we had gotten into the finals. But I don't think we were like, yay. We get to fight Chainsaw Kitty. Yeah. I mean, it would have been cool to fight Chainsaw Kitty, because fighting bots like that was just always fun, but I don't think there was a very good chance at all that we would have that.
It'd be a heck of a way to end the night, though.
Yeah.
It would have been a really good way to end the night. But yes, I mean, I think, Kazia's run was one of the most impressive that I think that I've ever seen. So I'm not sure too many people could have stopped her that day, but it certainly would have been fun. So
she was just on a mission, and I feel like we were on a mission too, but it's like her mission was like holy or something. It was there was some other force that was just like the robot gods were just blowing wind at those sails in that moment, and she was an unstoppable force. There's no way around it, and would have been fun though.
Yeah.
it would have been
Yeah.
fun. It definitely would have been fun. So now that you've qualified, what's the plan for the rest of the year? I mean, you probably weren't thinking you were going to find yourselves in this position. So
We are gonna be in the next event, but that will be our fourth for the
Yeah.
year. So we seriously doubt we'll get into any after that. So we're gonna go to the next one, and then we're probably just gonna do like a bunch of G scrolls and others for the rest of the year until the World Championships, just like getting the bot more dialed in.
There's definitely more work to do dialing the bot in. So any place that we can get in the ring, we're gonna try. We don't live far away from Norwalk. We live about 50 minutes away. So, and of course we'll be there any chance we get.
We're gonna go there a few times just for drive practice in the cages.
Yeah, that's before May. We're hoping to get in there a couple times for drive practice. We've got a few changes. We're gonna mess around with some controller settings. And we're gonna screw around with some more fork scenarios and front end scenarios. Right now, all the drives working great. We're gonna try out one of Seth's new servos. We've been having servo issues, and that almost too is an element that made it sweeter. Is like we were having a real hard time the night before, and we burned out 3 servos on the bench, and at $60 a servo, that was like really bad,
Yeah.
and we were just struggling. Again, Julian, it's like the theme. He's like our little robot godfather. Julian had a servo waiting for us, in case we needed it, but we were down to 1 servo, and we swapped out receiver and transmitter. We were having ELRS issues, everything. It really didn't seem like we were going to be able to do much at all. But then this one said, I got a good feeling about this. And when we got it working, it was great. But yeah, we've got some things to test out and try. And I don't think that there's going to be large changes. New fork scenarios
Yeah.
and some transmitter settings, but and drive practice.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, for the forks and front ends, we're gonna move away from the extremes of big wedge with no ground game and giant DPU forks. Get something in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, that is very exciting. And I'm excited to see what y'all do this next time. And obviously at finals, I mean, like, hey, I think that Bean Supreme Refried has as good a shot as anybody. And I think you proved that at this last event. So very exciting stuff. Love to see more from you. And obviously, if you're watching this, please keep watching. Y'all know this is a multi-part episode, so we have lots more April stuff to talk about. So stay tuned, and thank you, Ben and Razi, for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we are back, and we are now ready to talk about the 12-pound bracket. And a pretty awesome robot called Void. And I have Trevor here to talk about the day, which I think there were probably a lot of up and down emotions throughout the day.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd agree with that.
For sure. It was a weird day.
It was a weird day. So let's go ahead and we'll get started going back to the beginning. Because definitely the drama definitely came more towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
So Void came into the tournament with essentially a win already in your pocket because you had a bye. So you
Yes.
didn't have to worry about 2 matches necessarily. And the first one that you had in the qualifying was against Desserts. So before we get into the bracket, if you just want to talk about like how you felt coming into the tournament and also that exhibition matchup against Desserts.
Yeah. So coming into the tournament, I felt pretty confident. Like I had the bye because I was the 1 seed. I felt pretty good about that. You know, I had just competed at Motorama a couple weeks before, I guess 4 weeks beforehand. And there were some issues there, but I got to go down to the Hive with Team Honey Cracked a couple weeks before NHRL, test some stuff out. And I was like, we did it. We went through all the tests we needed. I know it works. It's all going to be fine. Then I get into the first fight, and the exact problem I was having at Moto, where on a big hit, my weapon would just turn off, happened the first fight. And I did a ton of testing at the Hive. Like I hit their Bugsby shell probably upwards of 50 times really hard. And I was letting everyone else test drive it too. We were breaking a couple magnet rings on the hub motor, just really trying to test it. And we could not get it to turn off like it did at Moto, but it did the first fight at NHRL.
Yeah, it sometimes is like that. And one thing that I want to mention just before we get into talking about the bracket is I did find it, interesting that at one point during the stream, the announcers were kind of talking about the fact of, who knows what's going to happen in 12 pounds today because Promheta isn't here. And I'm like, well, there's Void. It's
We have
the
hub
same
motor
the
head up.
same team too. So there's definitely some possibilities
Yeah.
there.
Void and Promheta are pretty similar. They're also pretty different, but at least from the outside, especially just looking at them all bundled up, like top plates on and everything, they look pretty similar.
Yes, exactly. Well, so when we go into the first matchup for you versus Sievert, which was a really interesting robot for me because Matt Lantry is definitely well known as a control bot driver, and he is very good at that.
Oh, yeah.
And Sievert actually, I thought in the exhibition rounds was looking pretty good. How were you feeling
Sievert's
about
pretty
that?
scary. If
Yeah.
Sievert hits hard, it's pretty scary. But going back to Motorama again, I fought Sievert twice at Motorama this past year. So this was my 3rd fight with Sievert, fighting at NHRL. And this fight at NHRL went how the first fight at Motorama went, basically. One big hit, Sievert's weapon gets bent, and it can't do much more. My weapon still works, and I'm able to finish it. The second fight at Moto, my weapon turned off again, and I wasn't able to finish it. But we won't talk about that one. We'll talk about the wins for now.
Exactly. And it is interesting, especially with these early NHRL rounds, during the earlier part of the year, how a lot of things that happen at Motorama can come back to,
Yeah.
to show later on. So yeah, it was a good fight, really good win.
Yeah, I would be
Now,
very worried about Sievert coming back again and qualifying because it hits hard. I was able to
yeah,
get away scot-free this time, but it hits very hard.
for sure. I could see that just by watching on the stream. So yeah, it's definitely one to watch. Now your next fight was against Michael, which was a robot that I didn't really know anything about before the event. I know the builder's mom was in the YouTube chat and was very excited to see every one of Michael's fights. I mean, it was doing a really great job throughout
Oh
the
yeah, it worked
day.
great.
Yeah. How? I mean, it was a close fight. How was it for you?
Yeah. Well, going into that bot, it was one of the University of Cincinnati ones, and when I saw it was a horizontal with those giant forks on it, I was like, oh, he's gonna come out and try and be a Thagomizer like Jake. And he did a pretty good job at it. He just unlucky lost his weapon pretty early. Like my goal going into the fight was try and like feint going in, stop and let him spin, and then actually go in for a hit. And I was kind of successful for that and got a hit on the weapon, and it just burnt up for him. I know they were having issues with that all day, so I don't think it was anything specific I did or anything. It was just a problem they had. Then they were really able to control me with their forks for a lot of the rest of the fight. And then I had a drive side go down. They had hit it earlier in the fight and it kind of locked it up, but then that ended up like knocking the weapon motor out of the gearbox, so I fully lost it. And they were really able to take advantage of me losing that to control the fight, and they really brought it close. But right at the end, I actually hit the end of the gearbox shafts, like the output shafts on both wheels, and they were completely dead in the water. I actually thought the countdown, like the 10-second countdown for the end of the fight, was a knockout timer because they were totally immobile. So if you look at the camera looking at me post fight, I like look not or throw my head back in like relief, thinking I just won. Then I start walking around and I get to the side of the cage like, oh, this is going to a JD. I might really lose this. That was close. Uh, so yeah, that's how that fight went, I guess. It was
Yeah.
very, very close.
Oh, it was. I mean, do you feel that their weapon going down when it did was probably the deciding factor in that one?
I don't think so because even without their weapon, they were doing so well. I think losing the weapon and focusing more on control with the forks to an extent might have actually helped them because they were really getting good control with it. So really it came down to just getting those two hits on their wheels at the end of the fight, which was a little bit lucky on my part.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that works in your favor,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, definitely a close fight. Now going into that was, I think, I'm curious to hear your take on how you were feeling about the Minun and Plusle fight. Because I mean, obviously, like always a challenge, not only fighting Team Honeycraft, but fighting two robots at the same time, where you really have to be able to take both of them out. And it came down to the end, and there was obviously a lot of confusion because there's a tap out called,
Yeah.
and I think watching it, my instant reaction was like, oh, mine and Plusle tapped out. I mean, that makes, because why would Void tap
Mhm.
out? And
That was my reaction too. Like, why would I tap out? It was clearly them.
Yeah. So talk me through what was going through your mind, like not only during the fight, but then when that happened, like what were you thinking?
Well, going into the fight, just getting prepared for it, I was pretty excited because obviously Team Honeycracked was good friends with us at Team Defective, and Minun and Plus was our kind of collab bot between the teams because one of the drivers is Matt from Team Defective as well as Zoe. Uh, Jaren was actually driving with Matt this time. He was the one in charge of Plusle, and Matt had Minun. Zoe was not feeling great, so she had to sit that one out. But I was really excited going into the fight. I always look forward to fighting my friends, especially once we're already qualified. Stakes a little less high, so we get to have fun out there. Also within the Minun and Plusle, they run the same hub motor that Zoe designed that I use. So it was kind of fun to have like basically the same weapon setup, just mine's a bit heavier on both sides going in. As for them being a multi-bot, I kind of thought that's just fun. Like I kind of like fighting against both of them. I fought Battlebots once about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, and I had a good time with that as well. They just kind of go flying around because they're lighter, and if you can just get the weapon on them, it's a lot of fun. Because Zoe was not the one driving that one, and it was Jaren, and Matt and Jaren had a little less practice like driving with each other. I think they were a little less connected in their attack, so I was really able to go one after the other and just keep hitting them around. And then we get to the end of the fight where Minun gets its guts ripped out, so I go and target Plusle because I don't want to get entangled in wires or anything. Plusle gets launched across the arena. Red lights come on. I'm like, I just won in a like huge fashion. I'm yelling, celebrating. So I yell, celebrate with Zach, hug him. He walks the other way. I turn around to go celebrate with some other teammates in the crowd. Then I turn around and see Zach talking with the ref. I'm like, what's going on here? So I go walk over, say, hey, what's up? Because Zach looks a little concerned. And he just points at the button box and it says, void taps out. It's like, oh no, what happened? I know Zach was right next to me and I was on the other side of the box. So I'm like, I was thinking it was an issue like some competitions have where a robot hits a wall too hard and it triggers a button to go off. But in all of us standing around to figure out what happened, for the refs to try and figure out what happened, I hear someone, or Zach hears someone yell for the crowd, and it's my sister. My mom was taking a video of the fight and she had video of the cameraman hitting the button. So we ran my mom's phone down for Gwen and Libby to look at, and that's the video they used to determine the ref hit the tap out button.
Wow, that is crazy. I mean, were they
Yeah.
talking at all about what would have happened if they couldn't have gotten a video of that?
I did not hear what would have happened if there was no video of that, but I imagine I would have been mad at the outcome. You know, also we were pretty lucky that the tap out being hit happened when it happened. It was basically the end of the fight. Like that happened in the middle of a fight, that would be way more chaos.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that you were glad at that point that you knew that you qualified, regardless
Yeah.
of whatever the outcome was.
Yeah,
But I
there was
mean,
a bit of relief in that for sure.
but still, like for something like that to happen, you don't want it to happen that way. And I'm sure you were very relieved that they were able to sort that out,
Yeah,
and you knew that you were going to the finals at that point.
yeah,
Now the finals was against the Robo Jackets and their robot
yep.
Cherry, which I mean, I think that they felt pretty confident about that robot going into it, but I think it may have been a surprise for some.
It was a surprise for me. It's a new robot. You don't expect it to go all the way right away, but it was a great robot.
Yes, for sure. What was your experience fighting it? And I mean, that was again, I felt like it was a really close fight. And I wasn't even quite sure which way it was going to go at the end. But talk me through the fight and how you felt, like what did you think that the decision was going to be?
Yeah, so that fight, I knew going into it, like just the way the geometries line up for the two different robots, I was just gonna best outdrive them because their giant weapon all across the front, super low to the ground. I need to get around that if I want to do anything, or else they're just gonna hit my super low wedge that hangs in front of my weapon and bend it up. That's exactly what they did though, because Cherry is so planted to the ground when they turn. It's a great robot, hits super hard. Like I kind of thought like first full minute of the fight, oh, this is just going to keep going. They're just going to keep hitting me. It'll be over eventually, but got to keep trying. Then it turned off. And I was like, oh, did I just pull this out of nothing? Like this is an undeserved win probably, but they're not moving. So I still have a little bit of drive in my weapon, but I back off them because I'm like, I can't really even hit them. My wedges are bent up. Even if I tried, like nothing would happen, and they're just sitting there. So I let it go. Almost to the end of their count, they moved just a little bit. So think to myself again, like should I show aggression and try and hit them even though I know my weapon can't contact them and it's just going to push them an extended count when they're kind of, are they moving? Are they not? So I was kind of debating that for the whole last half of the fight until we get to the last 10 seconds. I realized they're not getting counted out. So I try and go in for the hit one time, but of course I can't. The wedges are bent up. By the time it got to the decision, I kind of had a feeling I was going to lose. In my mind, if I wanted to win, it would have had to have been from a count out right at the end there, like with the JD. I wasn't really the one showing, like pushing the pace of the fight at the start or doing damage or anything. It was just one moment they turned off. So yeah, once the time ran out, I had a feeling I lost it. Definitely disappointing, but I'm not like mad at the JD or anything.
Yeah, for sure. Disappointing, but at the same time, I mean, it was a very good robot. And
Yeah.
you know, still qualify, still get to go to finals. Now,
Mhm.
what's the plan for the rest of the year? Because I know everybody has their own way that they want to do things, whether they want to bring it back and kind of test it some more, or just like leave it be and iterate on it until finals.
Well, that night after the final, I was up thinking, oh, should I just sign up for May? I think I have a robot ready to go. But I realized that would be a pretty bad idea. Uh, Gonna do some things are gonna get a couple upgrades. I think I'm gonna go with some faster drive motors because there were some moments where I just felt like I could not get in time to get a good hit. Uh, my next event will probably not be an NHRL. It'll probably be Honeycrack's Hive Hysteria in July. I think I'm going to take a break for the May and June ones. I'll still be at the June one with whatever Zach brings because I'm always part of his pit crew. But yeah, NHRL I might come back October, November before World Champs. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling that Void is definitely going to do well if you bring it back later in the year, based off of that showing. So excited to see it. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It was a great run. You definitely have a great robot on your hands there, and we'll kind of see what happens the rest of the year.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And if you are watching this episode currently, please stay tuned because we have one more segment to come. So just keep tuning in. And we are back for the final segment of this episode. And as I typically do, we're going to end on the biggest weight class, 30 pounds, talking about April. And you know, we didn't have a lot of 30 pounders in the field for this event, but I think it was still pretty exciting anyways. And one of those robots that was able to qualify in this event was Alan. And I have Nick here to talk about Alan. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
So Alan, I'm going to make the presumption based on the design is a Barbie movie inspired robot. Am I correct on that?
Yes. It was originally designed to fight part of the Barbie and Ken multi. But then some of the rules changes with the multi-bots. I think 30 pound multi-bots lost 1 pound actually from like 22 pounds to 30 or 21 pounds. And also the design was kind of overweight anyway. So it kind of spun off into its kind of whole thing. And it kind of allowed me to like, I kind of already had most of the bot designed and like machined at that point. So, okay, I was looking at ways I could add weight in functional ways in armor and other ways. And I think that really helped the design, honestly, to be able to have like a really nice wedge and really good forks in the front.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, like I love the theming. I think that it's so fun. And you know, I think that's like half of what draws me to a robot where I'm like, this is just a fun design. But you know, it also was pretty effective, at least in one particular match against the Robo Jackets. But let's talk a little bit about the day. I mean, first of all, what were your expectations, or you know, how were you feeling going into the event?
Yeah, going into the event, I was actually pretty worried. I had to do a last minute switch because I messed up some of the dimensioning for the V belts for the main weapon. So the entire day before, I was trying to get 3D printed pulleys to work in this 30, and they kept melting because the motor was getting too hot. And I brought like a couple backups with me. I brought like even a 3-pound aluminum pulley that I had, and that's actually what I ran for most of the event, was this like dinky like 3-pound pulley that I have for like Morningstar, my 3-pounder. That's for the belt, wrong belt profile, but it was just like the right size to get my main weapon spinning. I think I wasted like maybe a good 3 hours in the beginning of the day just trying out different pulleys in my weapon. But I eventually found that one, and it worked well enough for me to get fighting. A lot during the day I was fighting some new bot gremlins from I mean, I don't really have a space to both spin up and drive. So the event was the first time doing both those things at the same time and actually hitting something. So throughout my fights, I kind of found a lot of teething issues with the robot that I hopefully plan to fix throughout the year. The drive was not spectacular. It's even without any of the damage it occurred throughout the day, it was kind of slow. So that's something that really needs to be fixed for December.
Yeah, for sure. And we're gonna dive into, some of those fights that you had. Now, as luck, or the opposite of luck, I guess you could say, would have it, your first fight in the exhibitions was against Lil Lash, which, as I think most people watching this would know, is a scaled down version of Whiplash, which is a robot that almost won the giant nut. And Matt and Jason are very, very good builders and drivers. So how are you feeling about that? I mean, I would say for pretty much anybody, that would have to be a little bit intimidating.
I was terrified of Matt's driving going into that match. It was very scary to know that like one of the best drivers in Battlebots was against this like 30-pounder that I've probably maybe have like 2 minutes or 3 minutes driving. A bunch of the other people in like the two ought to handle Discord were talking about, hey Nick, have you practiced driving upside down yet? Um, because it was just like it was inevitable that I was going to get flipped at some point. Um, and going into the match was also a little scary because I tried self-riding with my weapon motor like fully, or my weapon fully stopped, and it nearly smoked my weapon motor. So I was really afraid of that happening, landing upside down, being stuck upside down, just ending up turtled. My bot can also kind of do the thing on its face a little bit, but going into the match, I was not super confident, but I was going to give it my all, spin up, hit him as hard as I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's all that you can do sometimes. And yeah, I mean Matt's a phenomenal driver, but luckily I guess for you, you ended up having your second qualifying fight against a bot that had to end up forfeiting. And you did end up getting into the bracket. Of course, once you get into the bracket, it's not much easier in 30 pounds, because with that weight class, if you get into the bracket, you're automatically in prime time, which is an exciting thing because that means you only have to win once and you qualify, but you're also fighting some really spectacular robots. And your first matchup was against Tsunami, which is a RoboJackets bot. And I mean, they're known for very good robots. Obviously, we've seen what they've been able to do with Chunky. So how are you feeling about that? And kind of take me through the fight, that you were able to get the JD.
Yeah, so I was talking to them a bit before the match. I saw their previous match of the day against, I think, For Alligator or a similar named robot. One of the robots from Florida, I think. And they ended up smoking. They were dealing with some gremlins in their driving with their weapon motor. So I was okayly confident. I wasn't like super. I wasn't confident like I could knock them out one shot, but I was feeling good that I could drive around, spin up, hit them, go weapon to weapon with them, and give it a good match. In the beginning of the match, yeah, I got a really nice hit on them, flipped them upside down. apparently they can't drive upside down, which I did not know. So I ended up hating them again, flipping them back over, um, which was fun to watch the announcers say that after the fact. Throughout the match, though, I slowly kind of ran into more of my drive gremlins. My front wheels on my bot like start to cantilever under my robot, leaving the front edge to start scraping, and that makes my drive just absolute trash. It's really hard to maneuver when that happens. And I got a couple nice hits. I wasn't really getting enough feed to get great hits, but popping them up to have them land on their front and have them do the thing and have them use their Brett save for that was awesome. That was such a nice moment. And towards the end of the match, I really started to have more and more drive issues, and I was really not very mobile. And I felt like there was a good chance I was actually going to get counted out, just because I wasn't mobile enough. But luckily, I was saved by the bell and luckily won the JD.
Yeah, and with that JD, you obviously qualified for finals later this year. How excited were you about that? I mean, it's, luckily you didn't have to go through a huge gauntlet to get there, but at the same time, like, it's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, this is my first time qualifying for finals in a bot that I captained. I've been to finals before with Waddles. I used to be on the Waddles team, but this is like my first. Nick Grumski is the captain of this robot and has to make all the anxiety-inducing decisions about like what I need to fix before December. So I'm excited. I'm going to try to make it in December. I'm really excited to fight. There's not an I'm not super confident about it, but there's especially because there's not a lot of the heavy hitters aren't qualified yet, so we'll have to see who actually makes it into the tournament. But I am super excited to show what I got and put on a great show in December.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of anxiety, it's one of those funny things that I specifically had the Robo Jackets on to preview this tournament because they were bringing so many robots to it. And you knew that they were going to bring it. Anxiety certainly was looking good for that event. Having to fight that team essentially back to back. Were you concerned? Because I mean they definitely have a good pedigree with their robots.
Yeah, I mean undercutters are scary. My especially my back wheels are really exposed and they're out there. They did a good bit of damage to my drive and actually just like they essentially obliterated both my drive pulleys on both sides of my robot, which was wild to see. Yeah, even if I was just not able to maneuver enough for them with my wedge to be able to keep them in front of me. It would be nice that my weapon was working maybe next time I face them, but I'm excited to get another crack at that robot and see if I can actually beat them next time. Yeah, big congrats to them to winning the entire event against going against Little Lash in the finals.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, would have been fun for you to get to have a rematch, but
It would have
still.
been awesome story wise to like have my first match of the day be against the same robot as the last match of the day. It just didn't happen that way.
Yep, exactly. Now are you planning on running Alan again at all this year until finals, or are you just going to work on it and bring it back at that point?
I'm not sure yet. It's just like logistics of it of getting from Pittsburgh to Connecticut for a weekend. But I would love to. I mean, I took very little damage to most of the chassis of my robot, so it's like print a couple pulleys here and there, remake a couple wheels here and there, and it can be back in the box ready to go. So I maybe we'll see how my like work schedule goes and if I can make it.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, as you mentioned before about like, only having driven it a small amount of time. Most of us unfortunately don't have boxes that we can throw a robot into, and so getting that drive time is certainly a good thing when you're able to.
Yeah.
Well, I think we certainly look forward to seeing Alan come back for finals. I'm sure that you're excited about that, and hopefully you get some good matchups. And like you said, you never know. Maybe you'll see the Robo Jackets again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some rematches. They're a fun group of people to fight against.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll look forward to that. And obviously, we have a May event coming up. So we'll be talking about that in the next episode. But if you're watching, please make sure that you like, subscribe, share, follow, comment, engage however you feel like. And we'll definitely have a lot more to come. So keep watching, keep supporting combat robotics, and we'll see everybody next time on the show.